My husband threatened to divorce me because I wouldn't eat mustard. If you'd asked anyone in our circle, they'd have said Mark and I were the almost perfect couple. We'd met at 29, both working in the same mid-sized city, and dated for 5 years before finally getting married. I was 34 now, and so was Mark. We lived in a leafy suburb, the kind you walk around in and see kids on bikes, two-car garages, lawn flags fluttering in the breeze. From the outside, I'm sure it looked cozy. But there was a running joke among Mark's friends, who by default had become my friends too, that I was the picky eater. The punchline? Mustard. I absolutely detest it. Not just the bright yellow stuff, but Dijon, spicy brown, honey mustard. If it's got mustard seeds or powder, I can taste it from a mile away, and my whole body recoils. Mark, on the other hand, was obsessed. He'd slather honey mustard on sandwiches, dunk fries in it, even swirl it into salad dressings. At first, I thought it was funny, the same way someone might poke fun at a spouse who doesn't like onions or olives. But it wasn't long before Mark's ribbing shifted into something sharper. "You're being difficult," he'd say, squeezing the bottle just a little too close to my plate. Real adults don't have food phobias. If I grimaced or moved my meal away, his smile would flatten. "Come on, Anna, just try a bite. I promise you'll like it." It was like he couldn't let this go, as if my dislike of mustard was a personal failing aimed at him. Most days, I tried to brush it off. I told myself it was just a weird little quirk. Everyone has them, right? But the more he pressed, the more I felt the tension rise like a splinter under my skin. I loved food. I would try almost anything, from tripe to kimchi to aged cheese. But mustard was my hard no, and I was getting tired of defending that tiny line in the sand. One Friday, Mark and I decided to drive up to a lakeside town for a weekend getaway. The plan was to unplug, maybe hike a little, and eat at a couple of the roadside diners Mark kept raving about. We'd barely made it out of the city limits before the first disagreement flared up. "I was thinking we could hit that burger shack by the old pier," Mark said, checking Google Maps. "They've got those amazing mustard-glazed sliders." "I'll just get a regular burger, thanks," I replied, keeping my voice light. He sighed, already annoyed. "You know, you really limit your options with this weird mustard thing." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Can we not do this again?" He shrugged, turning up the radio. The air in the car felt thick, like the argument had only been paused, not resolved. When we stopped for gas halfway there, I stepped inside to grab us some food. The hot dog stand was nothing special, but I was hungry and grabbed a plain dog for myself, ketchup only. I emerged, balancing the paper tray, and set it down on the hood while Mark fiddled with the pump. Just as I reached for my first bite, Mark spun around, snatched the bottle of bright yellow mustard from the condiment stand, and before I could stop him, slathered it in thick, wiggly lines across my hot dog. "There," he said with a smirk. "Now it's actually edible." My hand hovered in the air. I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged, his expression hardening. "You're being ridiculous. Just eat it." The hot dog sat in its soggy paper cradle, ruined. I stared at it, then at him, and in that moment, something in me snapped. This wasn't about mustard. It never really was. I left the hot dog on the hood, turned on my heel, and walked back to the car to wait in silence, my appetite gone. Mark followed soon after, slamming the car door so hard the windows rattled. As soon as he slid into the driver's seat, he rounded on me. "You embarrassed me back there. You always make a scene over nothing. Everyone was looking." I kept my eyes forward, hands folded tightly in my lap. "You're the one who made it a scene, Mark. I just wanted to eat lunch." He threw up his hands. "You can't compromise on anything. Maybe we'd be better off divorced, seriously. I can't be married to someone who acts like a brat over a condiment." My throat tightened. "Are you threatening me? If that's what it takes to get you to grow up, maybe I am." His voice was sharp and raw. I'd never heard him this angry over something so stupid, but I realized it wasn't about the hot dog. It was about control, his and my refusal to go along. He put the car in drive and peeled out of the parking lot, muttering curses under his breath. My hands shook as I fumbled with my phone, quietly sliding it into my coat pocket and hitting record. If he was going to scream at me and drive recklessly, I wanted proof. For the next 20 minutes, Mark raged. "You ruin everything. You make me look bad in front of people. Why can't you just be normal for once?" The car swerved a little as he gestured, voice rising to a fever pitch. I pressed myself as close to the window as possible, praying we'd just arrive somewhere safe. When we finally pulled into the lakeside town, I told Mark I needed some air and grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk. "I'm not going home with you tonight," I said, voice flat. "I need some space. I'll get a hotel." "What, over a hot dog?" His face was red, jaw clenched. "Over you threatening me. Over you yelling at me like I'm a child. I'm done." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." But I walked away, checked into a little inn near Main Street, my hands shaking as I handed over my credit card. In the hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the salmon-pink walls, the floral comforter, the suitcase at my feet. I felt completely alone. My phone vibrated nonstop, Texts, calls, voicemails piling up, with Mark's name flashing again and again. When I finally looked, my stomach dropped. One text was a screenshot of a divorce lawyer's website. The message, "You want out? Fine, don't bother coming home until you've grown up." I pressed play on one of the voicemails, heart hammering. Mark's voice, thick with anger. "You're going to regret this, Anna. No one else would put up with you anyway. You want to leave? I'll call a lawyer in the morning." Sitting there, I realized the mustard was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. Mark couldn't tolerate that I might want something different, not just with food, but in every aspect of our lives. The hot dog wasn't the problem. It was his need to win, to be right, to have control. Tears stung my eyes, but I made myself breathe. I wasn't going home tonight. I wasn't sure I'd ever go home again. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. I hesitated, dread blooming in my chest as I pressed play. The message was more threatening than before. Mark's voice, lower and edged with something dangerous. "If you don't answer, I'll come find you. Don't make me regret marrying you." I pulled my knees up to my chest, the weight of fear pressing down. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I was trapped, but for the first time I wondered, what if I could actually break free? I sat on the hotel bed, the dull lamp glow making everything look a little surreal. My phone sat on the nightstand, the recording of Mark's furious tirade just a tap away. My hands shook as I pressed play, forcing myself to listen. His voice nearly vibrated out of the speaker. So much anger, so much venom. "You ruin everything, Anna. If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all. I'll make sure you regret it." I felt my body recoiling from the sound, but I played it again, letting it burn itself into my memory. I needed to remember this wasn't just a fight over condiments. This was the pattern I'd been living in, the erosion of my self-worth drip by drip, bottle by bottle. I bit my lip, scrolling through my contacts, searching for someone, anyone, I could trust. My heart hammered as I tapped on Jenna's name, my closest work colleague. It rang 3 times before she picked up, her voice thick with sleep. "Anna, is everything okay?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked. "Jenna, I know it's late, but Mark and I, he lost it tonight. I'm scared. I'm at a hotel and he won't stop calling." She was instantly awake. "Anna, listen to me. Lock your door. Don't answer his calls. If you feel unsafe, call the front desk or the police. Do you want me to come get you?" The kindness in her voice nearly undid me. "Thank you. I just needed someone to know where I am. I'm so tired, Jenna. He's been like this for so long. I don't know who I am anymore." She was quiet a moment. "You're strong. You don't have to go through this alone. Please promise me you'll stay safe." I hung up, feeling a little less alone, but the weight in my chest remained. I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling as I typed in, "domestic abuse resources near me." The list that came up, shelters, hotlines, legal aid, made my head spin. Was I really here? Was this really my life? Hot tears slid down my cheeks as I scrolled through stories on survivor forums, seeing pieces of myself in the words of strangers. My phone lit up again. A new message from Mark. "You're nothing without me. Answer me, or I'll come to that hotel myself." I wiped my face, hands shaking as I considered replying. Should I text back to calm him down? Should I answer, if only to keep him from showing up? But every time I thought about giving in, I remembered the fear in Jenna's voice, the shaking in my own hands. I decided on silence. I turned off notifications, but kept the phone within reach, just in case. Then I grabbed my small overnight bag and began packing it with my essentials. Toothbrush, charging cord, the few clothes I had. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, eyes red and swollen. Who was I, if not Mark's wife? When had I become so afraid, so small? I gripped the edge of the sink, willing myself to breathe. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe, for once, I could choose myself. As I zipped up the bag, my phone buzzed again. Mark's name flashed across the screen, the preview more aggressive than anything before. "You'll regret this, Anna. Don't make me come find you. Last warning." My heart pounded, fear and anger swirling together. I clutched my bag tighter, knowing it was time to make a choice. I lay on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling as my mind replayed the last 5 years like a fever dream. Mark's voice, always insistent, always dismissive. I remembered the way he'd pressured me for sex, never taking no for an answer, unless it was something he wanted from me, like a favor, a performance, not intimacy. It took me way too long to realize that wasn't normal, wasn't loving. I'd drawn boundaries, and he'd sidestepped them, coaxing and sulking until I gave in, except when it came to anything but the bare minimum that suited him. I thought of our weekends, how he'd schedule every hour, dragging me to breweries and sports bars, dismissing my suggestions for hikes or art shows as boring. I'd stopped suggesting, stopped asking. Even little things, like which show to watch or where we kept the coffee, became his decision by default. It was all so gradual that I didn't notice how small my world had become, how much of it revolved around avoiding his moods. Earlier that year, I'd started a note on my phone, a secret list. Every time Mark did something that made me feel off kilter, I'd write it down. Calls me childish for not liking mustard. Gets angry when I want to see a movie without him. Pressures me for sex after I've clearly said no. Monitors my texts with coworkers. The list was long and damning. A private tally I'd never shown anyone. I scanned down the note, feeling the weight of each entry. It wasn't just about food or sex or chores. It was about control. About how my interests, my needs, my comfort had been sidelined again and again. I was isolated. Mark's friends were my only friends, and my parents were gone. I had a couple of work acquaintances, but no one close. Even online, I was just another screen name in a forum, too afraid to truly reach out. Was mustard really the deal breaker? Or had it just exposed all the cracks that had been there for years? I wasn't sure. Maybe I didn't need a single deal breaker. Maybe it was the sum of every little indignity, every time I'd been told my feelings didn't matter. I sat up, pulled my laptop back over, and started searching for divorce lawyers in our city. The results were overwhelming. So many names, so many specializations. I opened another tab and looked up therapists, typing in domestic abuse, emotional abuse, recovery. Everything felt heavy. The choices endless and paralyzing. But the longer I scrolled, the more determined I felt. I wasn't going back to the way things were. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Mark. The tone had shifted. Anna, please. I'm sorry. I'll change. Come home, let's talk. I miss you. I stared at the message, not sure whether to scream or cry. There it was. The honeymoon phase lure. The bait for a new cycle. I put the phone face down and tried to breathe, knowing I was standing at the edge of something huge. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel, suitcase in hand, stomach knotted with dread. My plan was to go straight to a friend's house. But as I walked through the lobby, I saw Mark sitting in one of the overstuffed armchairs, head bowed, leg jittering. He looked up as I entered, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. There you are, he said, pushing to his feet. We need to talk. I stopped, glancing around the lobby. The front desk clerk looked up, sensing the tension. I squared my shoulders and kept my voice steady. We're in public, Mark. There are cameras. Don't touch me. He bristled but kept his distance. I just want to talk. You blew this all out of proportion. I didn't hurt you. Why are you acting like I'm some monster? I took a breath, trying to keep my hands from shaking. I'm not coming home, Mark. I'm filing for divorce. I'm not going to pretend everything's okay just to make you feel better. His expression twisted. Are you kidding me? You're going to ruin our marriage over a stupid fight? Over mustard? My voice barely trembled. It wasn't just one mistake. It's years of you ignoring my boundaries, threatening me, controlling me. I'm done apologizing for wanting respect. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a hiss. You're making a scene. Everyone's staring. I don't care, I said. I'm not afraid of you anymore. His composure snapped. You're throwing away everything. For what? So you can be a martyr? I shook my head. No, so I can be myself. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist, hard enough to make me wince. I raised my free hand and pointed to the security camera above the entrance. Let go of me, Mark, right now. He released me, face contorted in rage and humiliation. You'll regret this, he snarled, but I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. I walked out of that hotel with my head held high, heart pounding. I didn't look back. That afternoon, I called in sick to work and spent hours researching therapists and legal resources for domestic abuse victims. Every call was a trial. Some offices were full, others didn't take my insurance. A few never called back. The process was slow and discouraging, and several times I found myself fighting the urge to give up entirely. I finally got an appointment with a crisis counselor at a women's center, but it was 2 weeks away. Needing something sooner, I joined an online support group for survivors of coercive control. The first meeting was terrifying. I listened to stories that echoed mine, 1,000 variations on, I thought I was the problem. When it was my turn, I hesitated, voice shaking as I spoke. My husband can't accept that I don't like mustard. That sounds silly, but it's about more than that. He screams, threatens, controls everything. I'm scared, but I'm finally leaving. The other women nodded, some teary-eyed, some fierce. You're not alone, one said. You deserve better. Buoyed by their support, I started documenting every message, every call, every interaction with Mark. I took screenshots, recorded voicemails, saved emails. Even as I blocked his main number, I kept a silent record. Protection for whatever might come next. Midweek, I got a text from a new number. You can't hide from me. I'll always find you. My skin crawled. Instead of panicking, I forwarded the message to my lawyer and to the local police department, following the advice I'd gotten online. It was terrifying, but also empowering. An act of defiance, a line drawn in the sand. Thanksgiving rolled around a few days later. I spent it alone in my apartment, making a simple meal. Mashed potatoes, roasted carrots, and the cranberry sauce my mom used to make every year. Memories flooded me as I set the small table, the way my mother always let me skip the green beans or leave onions out of stuffing. There had never been pressure, never shame for having my own tastes. I missed her fiercely. I ate in silence, tears sliding down my cheeks, feeling the ache of all I'd lost, my family, my old life, the comfort of belonging somewhere. Halfway through dinner, my phone rang. Mark's mother. I answered with trepidation, bracing myself. "Anna, we need to talk," she began, her voice thick with accusation. "Mark's devastated. I can't believe you'd do this to him over something so trivial." I listened, saying little. She pressed, wheedled, tried to shame me into coming back. "You're married, Anna. Marriage is about compromise. All couples fight. You're blowing this out of proportion." I swallowed hard. "I'm not discussing the details, but I'm safe, and I have legal counsel. Please don't call again." She huffed, clearly frustrated. "If you won't listen now, you'll regret it when you've lost everything." I ended the call, hands shaking, and immediately muted her number. I stared at my uneaten pie, knowing more pressure would come, but determined not to fold. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. We sat in a small windowless office, legal pads and thick files spread between us. "I want to file for separation, and I need a protective order," I said, voice steady. She nodded, taking notes. "Tell me everything, starting with the most recent incident." I described the fight at the gas station, Mark's threats, the hotel confrontation. I also recounted an incident from December, when Mark's rage had escalated so much, I'd ended up in the ER, too scared to go home that night. I kept the details brief, focusing on his actions, not my injuries. My lawyer listened intently, then nodded. "You have enough for a protective order. We'll file today." A few days later, I stood before a judge, hands cold and clammy. Mark was there, glowering from the other side of the room. My lawyer presented the evidence. The recordings, the texts, my documented pattern of abuse. The judge's voice was calm but firm as he granted the order. Mark was legally barred from contacting or approaching me. I changed my phone number the next day, traded in my car for a different model, and packed what few belongings I valued into boxes. With help from Jenna and a moving service, I relocated to a new city, 3 hours away, starting over with only the essentials. The relief was immense, but so was the exhaustion. Some nights I lay awake, listening to the silence, unsure if it was freedom or loneliness I felt more. As I unpacked in my new apartment, I got a notification from my support group, an invite to an upcoming meeting, a reminder that I was not alone in this fight. 1 week after the move, I started therapy with a counselor specializing in survivors of coercive control. I walked into her office, clutching a notebook filled with questions, fears, and the beginnings of hope. We talked about guilt, about how easy it was to blame myself for not trying harder, for making things worse. She looked me in the eye and said, "Anna, love shouldn't hurt. Control isn't care." We talked about the patterns, how Mark's preferences had always trumped my own, how compromise meant giving in, how my world shrank a little more each year. Piece by piece, I unspooled the narrative, and she helped me see where his love had always been about ownership, not respect. The breakthrough came softly, like sunlight through fog. "I miss painting," I said, voice small. "I miss hiking, and eating weird food, and laughing with friends." She smiled. "You can have those things again." After the session, I went home and wrote in my journal for hours. I listed every hobby and interest I'd abandoned, every friend I'd lost touch with. I made plans, a new yoga class, a gallery opening, a list of new books to read. For the first time in years, I felt possibility crack open inside me. That night, an email pinged into my inbox. Someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey, Anna, I saw your name on a mutual friend's list. I hope you're well. If you ever want to catch up, I'd love to." A thread to my old life, waiting to be picked up. I'd settled into my new city only a few weeks when my work held its annual conference. This year, entirely remote. I joined from my home office, logging into a sea of unfamiliar faces. Midway through the day, I noticed a flurry of chat messages popping up. One said, "Is that Anna L? Wasn't she married to Mark L?" My gut twisted. Within an hour, rumors were swirling. Had I left Mark? Was I okay? Was it true what he'd said about me? A colleague I barely knew pulled me into a private chat. Her tone faux sympathetic. "People are worried, Anna. Mark's been saying some things." I took a breath and replied, "I appreciate your concern, but I won't discuss my marriage. Please respect my privacy." Later, I overheard a coworker gossiping on a video call, twisting the story so I sounded unstable, even dangerous. Something in me snapped. I joined the call, voice calm but unwavering. "I'd appreciate if you didn't spread rumors. The truth is more complicated than you know. I'm safe, and I'm focused on my work." The room fell silent. I moved on, but the tension lingered. That afternoon, I gave a short presentation on resilience in the workplace, weaving in subtle references to boundaries and self-advocacy. I didn't name Mark, but the message was clear. I saw a few faces light up with understanding. Right after, my work account pinged with a new email. "You think you're clever? Keep lying and I'll ruin you." It was from Mark. I forwarded it to IT, who blocked his address, then looped in HR. They were supportive, arranging for extra security protocols and offering counseling if I needed it. That night, I received a notification. The court had set a date for our divorce hearing. My hands trembled, but beneath the fear, there was resolve. The end was finally in sight. A week later, I walked into my support group, nerves jangling. The room was full, faces new and familiar. That night, a debate erupted. Should you block your abuser outright or monitor them for safety? One woman said, if you block them, you won't see the threats coming. Another countered, but seeing it just re-traumatizes you. I listened, then shared my own story. How Mark's obsession with food, with mustard, had been just one thread in a whole web of control. I kept thinking if I just swallowed it, literally and figuratively, he'd stop. But he never did. Heads nodded. One woman squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, she said. You left. We shared resources, apps for documenting harassment, legal advice, self-defense classes. I volunteered to help organize the next meeting, wanting to give back some of the strength I'd borrowed. On my way home, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark's lawyer demanding I respond to new claims. The fight wasn't over, but I was no longer fighting alone. The morning of the divorce hearing dawned gray and cold. I wore my best navy suit, hair pinned back, and met my lawyer outside the courthouse. Mark was already there, pacing with his attorney. His glare sliced through me as I walked in. In the courtroom, Mark's lawyer tried to spin a narrative. That I was unstable, that I'd overreacted to one bad night. Mark himself downplayed everything, insisting he'd never truly threatened me, that I was making it up for attention. When it was my turn, I stood up and played the recordings. Mark's rage echoing through the speakers. I handed over the text messages and my meticulously documented list of his threats. My voice was steady, my hands only shaking a little. The judge listened, face impassive, then ruled quickly. The divorce was granted. The protective order was extended, with stricter terms. Mark was legally forbidden from contacting me. His face twisted with fury, but he was powerless now. Afterward, as I left the courthouse, I saw Mark's car idling by the curb. My stomach tightened, but security guards flanked me, making sure I got safely to my ride. I didn't look back. Moving into my new apartment felt both mundane and monumental. I decorated with things I'd always wanted. Soft blankets, bright art, shelves crowded with books. I set boundaries with friends and work, blocking toxic contacts, refusing to explain myself to anyone who didn't deserve it. One day, I wandered the grocery store, filling my cart with all the foods I loved. No mustard in sight. It was a small pleasure, but it felt revolutionary. I signed up for a yoga class, the first session awkward but freeing. The instructor's voice was gentle, the room filled with quiet encouragement. I moved through the poses, trusting my body again. At home, I journaled about my goals. Independence, happiness, maybe even love again someday. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, the world wide open before me. That evening, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find a package. A care box from Jenna, filled with chocolate, candles, and a handwritten card. You did it, she wrote. I'm proud of you. Months after the divorce, I agreed to a coffee date with someone I'd met through the support group, a gentle, soft-spoken artist named Robin. We met at a sunlit cafe, both of us cautious, both of us carrying scars. We talked openly about the past, about fear, about control, about hope. Robin shared their story, and I shared mine, and we both admitted how hard it was to trust again. But there was something comforting in the honesty. At the end of the date, I set clear boundaries. I need respect. I need honesty. If anything ever feels off, I'll say so. Robin nodded, smiling. That sounds perfect. We parted with a warm hug, making plans to meet again. I felt nervous, but for the first time in a long while, excited. That night, another message pinged in from Mark's lawyer. A last-gasp demand for property or money, couched in legalese. I forwarded it to my lawyer and turned off my phone, letting myself sleep peacefully for once. Over time, I threw myself into advocacy work, volunteering at a local shelter for domestic abuse survivors. I started small, sorting donations, answering phones. As I grew more confident, I began sharing my story anonymously, first in small groups, then at community events. I helped organize a panel about recognizing coercive control, talking about the way abuse can hide in plain sight, even in something as small as a bottle of mustard. I mentored a new member at the support group, a shy woman with fresh bruises on her spirit. You're not crazy, I told her. You're not alone. Each time I spoke, I felt the pain transform into purpose. I was turning the worst thing that ever happened to me into a tool to help others. One afternoon, as I was setting up for an event, my phone rang. My lawyer, calling about a court ruling in my favor regarding the last of Mark's financial claims. Relief flooded me. Another door closing. Another piece of my freedom secured. Most mornings, I woke to sunlight streaming through my new windows. One Saturday, I made myself breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit. No mustard, no shame. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. The kitchen was quiet, filled only with the sounds I chose. I checked my phone. No messages from Mark. No missed calls from his family. Just a text from Robin. Want to hike this weekend? I smiled, replying yes. I spent an hour meditating by the window, breathing in peace with every inhale. My mind drifted, not to Mark, but to all the new possibilities ahead. That afternoon, I planned a weekend trip with new friends. Finally, a getaway of my own choosing. Before leaving, I double-checked the locks, then paused at the door, a smile spreading across my face. I was safe. I was free. But I would always keep my boundaries strong. Just as I was about to head out, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart steady, not racing. Whatever it was, I knew I could handle it. This time, the story would be mine.